Oh, hi. Didn't see you there. I was busy finishing up this round here. I'm your host, Ryan. I'm here to welcome Andrew and Stephen Orr. And today we have a very special treat for you. We are going to be discussing esports. We're going to be discussing just about esports, the size of the market, how companies make money in this sector, and then we're going to give you some companies to look out for, both for events and equipment and all of that stuff. So without further ado, let me get my headset off here. You guys all know BigBeat, and we're also here with our analyst expert, Andrew. So Andrew, so why don't you say hi to everybody?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's it all going? Happy Thursday, everybody.
And Steve, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ryan. You know, that's exactly how I end every trading day, killing aliens and playing esports every single day. It gets my mind off of the markets.
Yeah, you're not the only one, Stephen. I've been known to smack around a few aliens myself, so it's definitely helps unwind after a long day. So Stephen, why don't you get us started off here? First of all, tell us about esports. Tell us about like how quickly this kind of evolved, and then also the size of the market.
You know, interesting enough, Ryan, when we were kids, our parents told us to stop playing games, get outside, make something of yourself. You know, today kids smoke weed and play games, and they're making money at it. So how times have changed. Interestingly enough, how times have changed is by a lot, right? I look at the latest Business Insider numbers, and if you look at the latest CAGR numbers, the CAGR numbers we call it, that's the compound annual growth rate. That CAGR is 9% between 2019 and 2023. That is compound growth every year in the esports industry. That is a lot. You're looking at $454 million within the esports ecosystem. We're talking all the way up to $646 million to close to $1 billion by 2023. That's only in 3 years, Ryan. Of course, they're saying that the 2017, that the audience that are playing games and watching games was 335 million. There's only 360 million Americans. It's crazy numbers.
Yeah, man, those are crazy numbers. And just to add to that a little bit, I mean, I've actually got myself into this. I've actually been one of the people that are actually watching video games getting played. And you know how that started because I actually wanted to learn how to get better at some games. I was able to find tips or come up with a new strategy or figure something out. So that's how it started for me. But it very quickly turned into an entertainment thing for me. And it looks like by those numbers, I mean, 335 million people, looks like I'm not the only one that happened to. So those are some eye-popping numbers. You're absolutely right.
You know, Deloitte and Touche, they said that in 2018 that the number of investments within the esports ecosystem there has doubled. That's crazy numbers. And that's definitely will translate into profits. And let's talk about some of the divisions within esports, because everybody thinks it's just playing the games. And there's so much more to esports than just games.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things that actually blew me away too was, you know, obviously I've played games for a long time. Back when I was playing, you know, when you were saying about your parents that when they were telling you not to play games and all that, back then there were no tournaments. There was nothing for me to point at. There was nothing for me to say, look what can happen if you actually become good at those things. So I kind of wish that was around before. I definitely enjoy watching it, but yeah, I mean, it's what kind of growth do you think? Do you think that we're at the top? Do you think that there's more growth? Do you think we're in the infancy here? Where are we in this cycle, and what can we expect going forward?
Ryan, you're very right. I think Andrew can also speak to this too as well. We are totally in the infancy. What do you think, Andrew?
I mean, I think we're definitely in the first or second innings of just like growth in general, especially when you consider from like a broader perspective, kind of like what's happening with like entertainment. Entertainment is not the same as it used to be back in the day. Even a few years ago, I remember one of my old jobs, I was sitting next to one of my friends, and I was like, what are you watching, dude? He's watching like a League of Legends tournament, like on his cell phone. He's watching this all day, every single day. I asked him, like, do you watch sports? Like, do you watch like conventional entertainment? He's like, no, like this is kind of like my hobby. This is what I do for fun. So I think with that perspective and the fact that a lot of people that are a little bit older still seem, at least from my experience, kind of oblivious to like what's going on. I mean, I think we're just going into a completely new paradigm growth. So we're probably in first or second inning of growth in general, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And you know what's interesting is even my generation, I'm 46, and everywhere I go into anybody's house now, especially my age group, they've all got an Xbox or a PlayStation. They're all playing, and they're not just playing games, but they're able to watch Netflix. They're able to watch Amazon Prime and all those other things, but they've already still got the hardware gaming. And we know how exciting it's going to be because this is the year that both Sony and Microsoft said that they were going to upgrade their hardware. Now, we're going to get into that a little bit later, but Ryan, if we want to show them how to pull up a watch list of gaming sector.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and share my pro screen here for you. All right, so what I've got here is a news feed and a details tab, and what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to add a watch list here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the gaming watch list that you created. So this is going to be available to any pro customer. What we're going to be able to do here, sorry, let me mute that. What we're going to be able to do here is go ahead and click on the help icon that's in the upper right hand corner of your platform, and then click on visit help site. And what this is going to do is this is really quickly going to take you to the help site where BigBeat has compiled all of these lists. Now, BigBeat, help me out here. Did you call this one gaming or esports? I think it was gaming.
Gaming, yeah, it's gaming.
So I'm going to go ahead and hit Control F to find, and then I started typing in gaming, and you'll see it brought me right to it here. All right, and what we're going to do is click on the image itself so that it downloads the watch list. Sorry, my computer's taking a sec here. And once we do that, we're actually going to go back to Pro, and we're going to import this watch list. So it's downloaded in the bottom left-hand corner. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. It's going to open it up in a spreadsheet. I'm going to copy out all of the tickers, simply drag and select them all, and then hit Control-C or Command-C if you're on a Mac. And then when you go back to Pro, here is going to be the trick. Go ahead and hit the plus button in your watch list, and then name your watch list whatever you want. I'm going to name it esports here, and then hit create watch list, and then paste those tickers into the search bar right at the top. So simply click it once, get your cursor there, then hit Control V or Command V, and go ahead and paste those in. Now remember, when you're pasting in multiple companies at once, give it a few seconds just to make sure that it loads all of those in here. Now, now that we've got them loaded in here, just taking a very quick glance, I can see that Sony, Microsoft, Dave & Buster, Turtle Beach is on here, Electronic Arts. So it looks like we've got a really, really good watch list here that's going to be able to track most of the companies in this sector.
And one of the things that I do, Ryan, is that I will sort it by percent change in the day. Obviously, the green, I like the green more than I do the red sometimes.
There we go. So now I have it sorted descending. So we're seeing the highest gainers of the day on top and the largest losers at the bottom. It looks like Turtle Beach is having a good day. I think I saw Andrew rocking a Turtle Beach headset at the beginning of this. I also have one. So does Steve. Hey, look at that. 3 for 3 on the Turtle Beach headset. So how about that?
And that tells you a lot about what's going on here. You know, we have different levels of gamers. You have a PlayStation. Andrew and I have Xbox. And then what's interesting is we all three have a Turtle Beach headset. And so sometimes when these companies go out there and they make a product, sometimes they don't make a product just for one-sided. They want to make sure that they cover all sides. And so when you do that, those are usually companies that are looking at higher margins because there's no competition. And they're also looking at what I always say the best part is R&D. So there's always a new version. I noticed that I saw that, Ryan, your headset's up to date. Andrew's, yours is like last year's model, and I think mine was maybe a year and a half ago. And we all three bought different levels of the model, but yet we still bought Turtle Beach. It was very interesting.
And you know what else is really interesting? That's a really great point, Steve. You know what else is really interesting? So looking around my office here, you'll see that I also have a regular headset, a regular Sony headset. But you know what? I bought a headset specifically for gaming because of the ecosystem that we're in. I wanted the microphone to be attached to the headset. My other headset here doesn't have a microphone. I didn't want to go through having to piecemeal some of this different equipment together. And Turtle Beach offered a solution where it was just, here's everything that you need. You plug it into your system and it just works. And I think that that's one of the reasons, or that's definitely one of the reasons that I bought it. But I think that that's one of the reasons that companies like that are very successful, because they're segmenting their products and they're making it very easy for any user to use. So that's a really good observation.
Now, one of the things we want to talk about when I talk about hardware is that what's in the box itself. And we know the one most important piece in that box is the video cards. Tell me, Andrew, are you seeing any analysts out there that are really hyped up on one or two video cards?
Well, I think probably what you're referring to, like you said, Steven, is like the GPUs. I mean, I'm sure we're all pretty aware of NVIDIA, just like in general. I think it's been a little while, but if you go on Benzinga Pro, you can just kind of do like a really simple overview to see recent analyst ratings for NVIDIA. It's been a pretty turbulent volatile couple of years for NVIDIA. I think they were like 250 a couple of years ago, went down to the like 130s, 140s, and now they're back up. So on Benzinga Pro right now, if we go to analyst ratings,
and I'm doing it for you as you're explaining this, Andrew. I've gone ahead and filtered my newsfeed to only show me analyst ratings. And now I'm going to go ahead and type in NVIDIA ticker in the top so we can only see the different ratings about NVIDIA. So right here, the first line here looks like Piper Sandler maintains an overweight on NVIDIA and raised the price target to 275.
Yeah, and I remember even like the other day on Monday, I believe NVIDIA had like some meetings at CES, Consumer Electronics Show, and Needham just had some interesting color there where they upgraded them just to hold. Talked about how they thought shares were fully valued at 34 times earnings. You get like a little valuation analysis there as well. And you also get some other like qualitative stuff as well. And if you look even above in the 1:51 p.m. post, you also have like an article from some of our journalists kind of expounding a little bit upon those analysts' thoughts on NVIDIA right there. So that's what's kind of cool about Benzinga Pro is that we have really brief like analyst headlines. We also have color headlines. And we also have more in-depth like journalistic pieces on different analysts.
Absolutely. And really quickly, I just wanted to reiterate, because I kind of did that very quickly. You just want to make sure that you have the default sources, if you will, Benzinga Signal, Benzinga Wires. And for this particular example, all I did was I checked the analyst ratings, which included all of the 7 subcategories that Andrew just mentioned. He mentioned that we, analyst color, downgrades, upgrades, and price targets and all of that. So all of that now is included in the newsfeed. And then I filtered it by NVIDIA. And here is the headline that Andrew was talking about NVIDIA being at CES. And then the one right on the top, when you click it, there's obviously more content for you to read. So this is a very, very easy way for you to research and see what people are saying out there about these different companies.
And you know what's interesting, we just talked about a few minutes ago, was that what products are in all segments of it, where we talked about Turtle Beach HEAR being in all kinds of platforms. Same thing, NVIDIA is in all platforms, right? The Xbox is going to be the same thing with Intel, right? INTC, same situation. It's not just about looking for those companies that are one-sided, but do they encompass all sides of the esports? The more that they can encompass, the more money that's out there. And of course, we do know that NVIDIA is in the R&D business. They are constantly upgrading. They're constantly making better chips. I also want to talk about some other things. It's not necessarily just the hardware side from that internally, but also the things that we also use, the gaming side from the perspective of LOGI, right?
So that's actually a really good point, Steve. There are definitely third-party companies that release other equipment for gamers. And everyone has their own preference. They have their own whatever it is that they want to do, their own favorite, if you will. And I have always been a favorite of the controller that comes with the system. So for example, if I have a PlayStation, I actually prefer the Sony controller. Likewise, if I have an Xbox, I actually prefer the Microsoft controller. But there is an entire huge market for some of these third-party controllers. You had mentioned Logitech, which is another company that makes a whole bunch of different devices. And that, which is of course public, there are also private companies like Scuff that make gaming controllers that are designed to take a little bit more abuse. I mean, who out there hasn't been frustrated and done a little spike of the controller when someone scores on you or something like that? That's just how it goes. That's the competitive nature of the business.
It's a glitch, right, Ryan? It's always a glitch.
It's always a glitch. It's always someone else's fault.
Never your own fault, right? What's interesting also is that I see GameStop, GME, they're actually holding up here. Isn't that a shocker a little bit that they are not in a situation where they're dying just yet, right? GameStop, GME, they are holding their own, because now we found out that DVD will be in the next sets of Sony and Microsoft's boxes, the Xbox and the PlayStation.
And so that you bring up a really good point with GameStop. I mean, obviously, even just as much as several years ago, GameStop is the place to be. I remember seeing lines outside of GameStops near midnight because of some popular game that was getting released, and there was just a ton of traffic and obviously a ton of sales for it through that. But now it seems like a lot of people are able to download games, buy them online, and simply download them directly to their system. And I feel like that's given more of a direct avenue to getting these games, and that's got to change margins a little bit, because obviously if GameStop is selling a game for $60, there's a lot of things that they have to pay within that $60, whereas a company that releases a game on the PlayStation Store or the Microsoft Store, there's no overhead there, or there's less overhead, or there's a different cost structure there. Can either of you guys tell me about that and how much more companies could be making now?
Well, I think one of the main kind of like bigger picture things that's kind of happened the last few years, because I believe GameStop stock was in the 30s a few years ago. It's just like you said, kind of like that transitions, like leaving your apartment or your house and going to the store, buying a game for $60, or simply like downloading it to your Xbox for $60 in general. And lots of what's happening now, especially with video game companies, there's this big aspect to it called like recurrent consumer spending. Meaning when I buy a video game, I buy it for $60 on the Microsoft Store. I think there's definitely a higher margin business doing it that way, kind of as you mentioned earlier, Ryan, because think about it, like the company doesn't have to get the box, make the CD. It's probably have some type of like revenue sharing agreement like Microsoft or like Sony, depending on your platform. But that's just kind of like the trend you were just talking about, like in general, is people actually just like not leaving their apartment, kind of like the stay-at-home economy, and just downloading their video games straight to their systems.
That's right.
You know what's interesting? I just pulled up a max chart on GameStop, and I had looked at myself. The PlayStation 2 came out in 2003, that December. If you had bought that stock, you would have bought it at around $4.50 a share, right? You probably would have dumped it around $40 a share. When the PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4 all came out, each time there was a pop in GameStop. So, this time around, you might not be able to get it at Amazon as early as you want it, right? Or you might not be able to get it from Microsoft as fast as you want it. Maybe you have to go all the way to the nearest GameStop store to pick up that latest box.
And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because obviously, when you're talking about getting games, obviously you can download those over the internet, but when you actually need to get the system, you're going to need to go somewhere to get that. And I know, like you were saying, with the release of the PlayStation, the last 2 PlayStation releases, there have been availability problems with the box. I know there's been an entire secondary market where people were selling unopened systems at a tremendous premium and people were paying for it. Yeah. So it will be interesting to see how they actually release these new systems, what kind of availability is going to be there. Just from poking around, it's very clear that there's still a lot of demand. And I think that's going to only continue as video games become more and more mainstream.
Well, I mean, it's kind of like we said earlier, like all three of us have I think we're all 3 different ages. I'm 30, and I think the average video game player is 36, 37, according to the NPD data numbers. So it is going to be really, really interesting what happens this upcoming holiday season, like you guys said, to see kind of what happens, where people get their consoles from.
All right. And so we've kind of talked about, system manufacturers and GameStop and outlets, and what other kind of stocks can be involved in the actual esport business, especially stocks that are public, or companies that are public, excuse me.
Ron, I think the next level we should talk about probably is the publishers of the actual games. I know a lot of people are always excited about what game is coming out from EA or from Activision, Blizzard, ATVI, or Take-Two. Let's talk about those games.
All right. And so let me ask you, let's just start off this way. What is everyone's favorite game to play, and what are you most looking forward to coming out? I know we just passed the holiday season, but looking forward, what are you guys most looking forward to?
I can take it first. My favorite game is Destiny 2. I played it for a lot. We already know that name of that company there, ATVI. And I also say EA Sports. I play a lot of Madden, and I love Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'm looking for the next level of the Star Wars games.
How about you, Andrew?
I am an NBA 2K guy. That's always my favorite thing. I love the sports games.
Yeah, I'm a big sports game fan myself. I'm big into FIFA. I'm big into Madden. I do enjoy basketball, although I haven't played it in the 2K games. I haven't played them in several years. But I will say that the game that I'm most looking forward to coming up here is Cyberpunk 2077, and that is being developed by CD Projekt Red. So that's not a public company, but it is a game that I think is going to open a lot of eyes. I know a couple of years ago when Witcher 3 came out, that was definitely a game that opened a bunch of eyes. That the same company is trying to do Cyberpunk 2077, so I'm really looking forward to that. No play on a stock there, unfortunately, for that particular game. But like I said, EA Sports, and actually something else that I wanted to talk about as it pertains to video games, in particular the EA Sports titles, is the microtransactions. I don't know about you guys. I definitely like the Ultimate Team modes in these different games. And one of the things about Ultimate Team is that you're able to open packs and get better and better players. And you can do that by accruing points by playing the game, but you can shortcut that by also paying real money. And they call these microtransactions. It's very easy to do. And very quickly I realized, oh man, maybe I'm doing this a little too much. I don't know here. So I think that's definitely increased revenues on some of these companies. Steve, do you have any experience with that? Do you ever participate in microtransactions?
If I get to a certain part and I just can't beat it, I'll go out and buy that little section to get me through it. If I need more bullets, hell yeah, I'll buy the bullets. I mean, you try not to, and it's a little gut wrenching. You feel like you paid the $60 for the game. A lot of times I'll buy the deluxe game before the game comes out, and when I do that, they give me all the fun stuff, but they always find a way to take out that last bit of little bit of money out of you.
Yeah, this is kind of what we were talking about earlier with like recurrent consumer spending in general. Yep. There's actually been a couple of controversies about this in the last couple of years. I think there was an incident with Electronic Arts and a previous Star Wars game, I believe they released a year or two ago, as far as loot boxes go, because there's a few different things in video games as far as microtransactions go. The first thing, like Steven said, is obviously if any of us can upgrade to get a faster basketball player, or maybe you're more bullets or whatever for our guns. You can pay for that. The second thing, though, is this thing called a loot box. So basically, you're paying a certain amount of money, a few bucks, $4 or $5, for a mystery item. A mystery item, something you're not totally sure about. And the problem that I think Electronic Arts faced a few years ago is they made their games so difficult to play that unless you actually bought lots of these loot boxes, which you didn't know what you were buying, it made completing the game almost seemingly impossible. So there was kind of an uproar over that, and why video games.
That game was Battle Station 2, and I was playing it with EA with Star Wars, and I'll tell you, Battlefront 2 was killing me. I couldn't beat it. I can't. Why am I buying this loot box? Why am I having to buy another loot box to get through it? And it hurt them. It hurt the stock price. It hurt them financially. And it got to the point where they got tired of it. They're like, okay, you know what? We'll just give you all the loot boxes now. But they found a different way to get the money out of you anyway. They changed the way that they score.
Yep. And I actually think even after that incident, I think there was a senator or a congressperson from Hawaii that actually said they were going to launch some type of investigation into it because they likened it to some of the gambling impulses that people have who are gambling addicts and whatnot. Some mechanics that were used in that game and other games are actually doing that on purpose to get you to, or stimulate you on purpose in a certain way to get you to spend more money. So, Steven, how much did you spend? If you don't mind sharing for all of us.
On Battlefront 2 for Star Wars, I spent about a couple $100.
How much did the game cost, Steven?
Well, my Darth Vader guy is he's pretty serious.
So, this actually brings up a really good point. And this is actually something that I wanted to discuss. The way I look at that, the way I can, I guess you could say justified or convince myself of that, is I try to compare video games to seeing movies. If I don't have any trouble spending $10 or $12 to see a movie for 2 hours, we're looking at about $6 an hour. So if I buy a $60 video game, I'm hoping to at least get 10 hours of fun out of that game. That at least makes it break even with a movie. And one of the things that I like to do one of the reasons that I like video games is because I feel like I can normally get more than I can out of seeing something like a movie. So if I spend $60 on a video game and I'm playing it for 20, 30, 40 hours, I already feel as if I've got my money back out of that game. And that makes going to the microtransactions, actually going to the store and buying stuff for the game, a little bit more palatable for me. Because like you were saying, Steven, you couldn't get past a certain point. You got a loot box, but then that opened up more hours of play for you. And that's how a lot of this actually works. And I know I can't speak for anyone else, but I know I can speak for myself. If I'm putting in time and I'm having a good time and it's fun for me, I'm definitely more liable to take advantage of some of those microtransactions because I feel like it adds to the experience. So when you asked him how much he spent, the follow-up question that I had in my head was, well, how many hours did you get out of that? How much more did you play because of that? Because I think that that's one of the drivers behind here. I don't know anybody, myself and any of my friends included, that spend a whole bunch of money, whether it be buying a pre-order of a higher level or then actually spending money on microtransactions. I don't know anyone that does that for a game that they don't like, a game that they're not putting in considerable hours.
You know, what's interesting, Ryan, on that, you compared it to going to see the movie. That's a one-way sided thing, right? The movie's out there, you watch the movie. With gaming, though, there's a social aspect to it, too, as well. Right? You're online with all of these other people. You're able to talk to other people. That's right. Andy putting on his headset. Exactly. We're able to talk to people around the world. I mean, I've met lots of new friends from Australia to wherever, allowing me to play games with them anywhere on the world, right? 3 o'clock in the morning, I can't sleep. I'm turning on Destiny 2. I'm going to kill some aliens, right? So I think that for us, the social aspect, I think we need to talk about the next level, right? How does technology push that social level out? Things like Twitch.
That's a really good point. And and just to go along those lines, I am way more apt to play a game if there's a social aspect of it. If I can play a game with some of my friends, I'm way more likely to play that game and play that for a longer time. And Steven, I'm really glad that you just brought up Twitch because that's another avenue that actually supports this, kind of runs parallel to the actual gaming itself. Twitch for me started off as I was struggling with a particular point in the game. I wanted some tips. I wanted to learn about something. So I'll check out this streamer on Twitch and see what they're doing. And then it became, wow, that was a really good piece of information. And there's a community here that now maybe I can play with. Maybe, like you were saying, that community is all over the world. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the United States. And a lot of the time, those people are available at odd hours. Like I also go through insomnia sometimes. I can't sleep. I need to kill some aliens or play some football games or something like that. There's always somebody available. And that social aspect is not to be not to be poo-pooed, if you will. In fact, leading back to one of the earlier conversations we had, that's why I bought a headset specific for the PS4. I needed to be able to talk to these people. They were teammates, whether they were my friends or not. They were teammates, and I needed to be able to talk to these people. So I didn't mean to railroad you on Twitch there, Steven. What did you have about?
No, I think it's great, Ryan. I think you're exactly right. And like I said earlier, my mom and dad said stop playing the Atari, right? Go outside. And the truth of the matter is, today now we can talk to anybody else in the world. But more importantly, these kids are getting way better than even we are, right? They're out there. They're learning from Twitch. They're learning from their friends on social media. Like you said, how to get better without having to actually use the loot box.
That's right.
So, what do you think, Andrew?
And Steven, I mean, I'm sure we're going to get to this pretty soon. We might even just kind of get to it now. And these kids are also making like a tremendous, some of them, not everybody, but you guys referenced it earlier, like a lot of these kids are actually making like a tremendous amount of money doing this, either whether it's like in a competitive setting like esports or having like these massive like Twitch presences, or like giving like instruction to other people to make them better at video games. Because when we were younger, people always talk about, oh, you're playing video games or you're a gamer, like what a waste of time. But now we're in an era where people are actually getting like college scholarships to play video games. They're made like these tournaments, these tournaments generate millions of dollars. They sell out stadiums, and it's just incredible how, even though we talk about this so obviously, like a lot of older people have like, what, like esports, like why would people do that? It's like, no, it's entertainment. And what is entertainment? Like video games provide a tremendous avenue for like a return on your entertainment investment. Would I rather go out in Chicago night in Chicago, that's where I live, with my friends, or spend like $60 on a game and then spend $10 on an outfit for my Darth Vader? Why not? I mean, ability for me, So, but Steven, can you talk about like Twitch a little bit? Just like give us like an overview. Does Amazon owns them, correct?
Correct. Well, interestingly enough, Twitch was born out of just YouTube, right? People want to just watch videos of kids playing games. And I mean, I'll be honest, I'm the first one to say it. I don't understand it. Like, why are we watching other people playing games when you could be watching them? So much so that Microsoft paid Ninja off, right?
That's right. My Mixer, I believe, is Microsoft's platform, paid so that Ninja would not stream on Twitch anymore. And that was huge, because he had a huge following too, hundreds of thousands, millions of followers. And it's like, if you want to watch him, you're going to go to where he's playing. And if he's not on Twitch, you're not going to go there as often. So that's like somebody
going out and buying a celebrity and telling them, I'll pay you $1 million to not drink Pepsi-Cola, only drink Coca-Cola. I mean, that's telling somebody not to do something, be on my team, not on their team. I'll pay you $1 million to do that, and bring your followers with you. That's a whole other level of finances that we didn't even see 10 years ago, much less 30 years ago.
And it's also crazy too, because you even look at like a guy like Ninja, like you guys referencing earlier, like he's actually getting into like the mainstream as well. Like he's in like a lot of commercials, whether it's on like television or connected television as well. So this is definitely spreading. I believe he makes something like $10 million a year for playing video games. Like, what are we doing with our lives, guys? Like he makes $5 to $10 million a year playing video games. Unbelievable.
Yeah. And what's next, the version of this is that they have created leagues from this, right? That they're creating these huge leagues based on certain games like Overwatch, League of Legends. They have to play these games, get better at it. In order to do that, they need venues and avenues in which to do that, to grow their talent, right? So one that we all know is Super League Gaming. That's SLGG. Mm-hmm.
So I went ahead and pulled that chart up here, Steven, since we were talking about it. And yeah, I mean, this particular chart doesn't look all that great, but the fact that there is a league that's public that you can actually trade, that's impressive. And to piggyback what you were saying, 10 years ago, if you had told me that this was going to be the case, I played video games. I'd have looked at you and been like, you're out of your mind. There's no way. And sure enough, here we are. So I also, as I understand it, these leagues that run these tournaments, they sell out arenas, serious arenas, thousands and thousands. This isn't 20 people from the neighborhood coming to watch a Madden tournament. These are thousands of people that show up live, pay to see these events, and then they also broadcast these events on TV.
Yeah,
and Andrew,
what's interesting, Ryan? I'm also an investor in Nerd Street Games too, as well, where they take, let's say, players that are young and okay, you have aptitude to play a game. Let's see how you do. Let's make you better. Paying for coaches, paying for time to get better, right? So much so that Comcast was like, okay, if you're going to sell out these huge venues, then let's make our own. Comcast being CMCSA. So much so that in Philadelphia, they started Spectacor, right? They built their own stadiums. They were selling at Madison Square Garden for the Overwatch tournament. The huge tournament, right? They would sell it out in a three-day tournament would be sold out in minutes. They're like, why do we do that here when we can do this and build our own places? So Comcast, as we all know, has been it's where your cable provider, and we all know what's going on with cable. It's dying, right? But the stock is straight up because they have expanded their avenues of money, right? And one of them being gaming.
Hey, Steven, really, really briefly, just in case some of our users aren't as familiar with like the dynamics that you're talking about, can you kind of give us just like a really brief overview of like the average age of like some of these people that are like getting this type of coaching, and like how often do they actually play video games per day? Because we're joking as if like this isn't like a very serious thing, but it is like a very, very serious industry.
Very serious, Andrew. I mean, if you think about it, when I was a kid, you went to the quarter machines and you played the video games, right? Same time frame. Looks like that a lot of them are between like the ages of 10, 11, and 12. They're able to go into these places that are safety. There's safety concerns because now we've seen a few issues, like one in Jacksonville of a shooting during a tournament. Yeah. So we have security issues there. You can always look at those kind of stocks as well. But to get back to it, yeah, 13, 14, 15, these kids are becoming teenagers. They're not able to drive yet. So what do? They play games, and if they're playing games, they need to get better at it. And so they're hiring kids who have already played these games. Those coaches are between the ages of 18, 19, and 20. They don't want to get too old. And then they move on. But yeah, there's a little bit of a gap there, and that gap is always the ones where you're going to either get really good in playing the tournament or you're going to go on to be a coach.
Mm-hmm. And so I have a really quick question. I'd like to get both of your predictions on this. We've been discussing the proliferation of esports and how it really just kind of happened seemingly out of nowhere. People are just playing video games, and esports kind of just evolved into its own thing. One of the other trends that I really see in gaming in general, more and more people are starting to play games on mobile. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, for me, when this shift first started happening, I didn't really understand it, because when it came to playing video games, like, I wanted the biggest and the best. I wanted it to be on a system. I wanted it to be social, as you had mentioned earlier, Stephen. I definitely wanted to do all of these different things, and mobile to me seemed like something else. It wasn't as easy to, or it wasn't as powerful as the video game systems themselves. The community is not as big, but it seems to me like mobile is still increasing. And I'm thinking of, tickers like a ZNGA for Zynga. Like, Words with Friends was a huge game when it came out. I played that with everybody I knew, family, friends, random people from around the world. I'm almost wondering if there's going to be another ramp here in the mobile game. Do you guys have any thoughts or opinions on that?
I mean, I just think in general, it's all just going to be continuing to expand as long as the companies are able to provide, it sounds obvious, but as long as companies are able to provide entertainment options that we want and create good games, I don't see why not, especially as the phones get better and better and better. And I think it depends for someone who's playing a video game on their mobile device. They could be playing Fortnite or Candy Crush from a couple years ago. That's a different experience than playing a video game with an actual handheld controller. And some people do both, some people do one or the other, but I really just think it's just you guys talked about earlier, how if you're able to provide me a rational, fun option to entertain myself for a few hours, and I see that as a good investment, I say either way, I don't see why they can't both expand if they're able to create awesome products.
You're absolutely right, Andy, and that was two of points I wanted to bring up. Number one is, if you went back to when I was bringing up the mobile, it wasn't your cell phone, because it was a flip phone. You had the PlayStation, the little bitty one, right? So you had to be the PSP. You had to play with that, right? And it grew in, but the problem is it went away because our mobile phone now has more power than the space shuttle did in the 80s. The second thing is, I can't tell you how many times I heard the word divine and sugar blast and all that, because my wife was playing it, right? When we think about it, right, most people think of the guys are the ones who are playing the games. It's not, man. If you go out and about, you see ladies playing games all day long on their mobile phones, and they're doing the exact same thing. They're buying those apps. They're buying those loot boxes. They may not be buying it on their Xbox, but they're sure as heck buying it on their phone.
100%. And those options of current consumer spending are great margin businesses for these companies. That's why they push them so hard.
And if you think about it, Zynga, I think you brought it up earlier, ZNGA, all these companies that are doing these mobile apps like Glue Mobile, GLUU, you're finding that now celebrities have gone by and said, okay, well, you know what, I'll endorse this product. And the Kardashians are endorsed a product. Britney Spears endorsed a product. So, yeah, when we see the celebrities endorsing a certain product, especially when it's a mobile app, boom, that thing shoots to the sky.
Yeah, and do you remember when that when the Kardashian when that happened, Stephen? When that
it happened in the summer of 2017.
Okay, so if we take a look at the chart and we go to the summer of 2017, let's just pick June 2017. Glue is printing about 240 handle, and it is literally straight up, almost touching 12. Looks like it topped there at 1175. So, Stephen, that's a really great point. That stock more than quadrupled on just that endorsement alone from celebrities. So, what will be the next celebrity to endorse? What will be the next line? What will be the next genre?
Right. You know what's interesting? If you look at Activision Blizzard, ATVI, Candy Crush was so popular that they actually bought the company. They bought the, and the other one that we look at, and it's not just the games itself, but sometimes a game turns into a movie. Just ask the guys at Rovio for Angry Birds.
Yeah. That's a really good point. And just to further that point, Stephen, I mentioned earlier, Witcher 3 was one of my favorite games of all time. Now there's a Netflix series that's getting rave reviews. So obviously the video game is proliferating a lot, and it's actually spreading into other markets.
What's kind of interesting is not just Mario, but how about a blue hedgehog running around finding gold coins? All of a sudden now there's a second movie about, Sonic the Hedgehog. So, that's Sega. So, it's not just gamers, it's not just gaming, but when you're trying to get to a wider audience, that's when the money really flows in.
Yeah, think about that massive ecosystem you just talked about, Steven, especially when you get to esports here in a second. Like, it's just a really, really big ecosystem in general.
I've even got, and my friends bought me a Star Wars pop too, as well, right? And Funko. If you think about it, Funko is also that all the games that you're out there playing, Witcher, they have a new pop Funko now too. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, this really just shows you that something that you don't necessarily think. I loved video games. I have since I was very young. And like I said, if you had said that this was going to turn into this huge market that affects all of these other different markets, I would have said, no, you're crazy. And my parents would have agreed with you. And they would have said, you need to stop playing. But sure enough, here we are. Enormous business opportunities, enormous opportunities for everyone else. So, I mean, it's nice to see. It's definitely nice to see that this is actually being taken more seriously now.
You know, the world's come a long way from my first game, and that was Asteroids.
Asteroids. Actually, I played that, but that was actually a little bit before my time. But yeah, Asteroids. Space Invaders, Pong, Asteroids, all the classics.
Yeah, I mean, it's still in my head, right?
Absolutely. So is there anything else that you guys wanted to cover on this topic before we wrap it up for the day?
I mean, really quickly, Steven, you just kind of want to get into like some just esports tournaments really, really briefly, kind of talk about some of that.
You know, esports tournaments are going to be really big right now because of how they're incubated right now. A lot of times they're being put into stadiums that are already there, like Madison Square Garden incubated their own teams, that kind of thing. Each city incubated their own team. Denver has a team, right? They had to go for their sports arenas there. But as they get bigger, they're going to create their own arenas. And I think that's where you're going to see a lot of growth.
Looks like we lost Steven there. Andrew, you still with me?
I'm still with you.
He's back. Steven, you're back. This was the lag. This is what every gamer talks about. This is the lag issue that people complain about. That's why people die when they play video games, because of lag.
So what I was going to say is each city has their own little area, right? So why not build your own stadium, right? Because your stadium is going to look a lot different than, say, like an NFL or a NBA or a Major League Baseball stadium. You're going to need what's a little more round so that everybody can see, but you're also going to need a practice area. A practice area for sports like football, you need a practice field, right? But in esports, you need all these things we just talked about. NVIDIA, you're going to need games. You're going to need video cards, high-powered Intel processors, all those things. You don't need one of them. You need hundreds of them so that you can actually build out that team, find the 10 best players, get down to the 5, and then all of a sudden, so now you have an arena that's Denver. Now you have San Francisco. Now you have New York team, a Miami team, and now they're all going to go at it. And all of a sudden, you now have major leagues of esports.
And, one of the team in Denver might be sponsored by Logitech, whereas the team in Florida might be sponsored by Sony, and the team in California is sponsored by Microsoft. So sponsorships are also a whole other avenue of this equation.
And the team in Chicago might be sponsored by the Mafia.
Say that again?
And the team in Chicago might be sponsored by the Mafia.
Or the 2016 World Series champion.
So there's a lot that this entire thing can morph into. Again, like Steven, your point of when you're constructing these arenas, when you were saying that, all I heard in my head was, wow, they're going to need monitors and chips and keyboards and headsets and all of this stuff. And it's just the more that this takes off, the more and more money is going to go into this sector. So,
and what else are they going to need when they build things like that? They're going to need infrastructure.
Right.
You got to put cement, concrete. You got to have steel. All of those things are going to need to be needed.
Absolutely. Well, it'll be interesting to see where we are, because like we were all kind of agreeing 10 years ago, I don't think any of us would have seen where we're at today. It'll be interesting to see where we're at in another 10 years. And like you guys were all also both saying at the beginning here, we're in its infancy. So this entire market could appreciate greatly over the next 10 years. And there could be things that we're not even talking about right now, companies that are created and mature in those 10 years that we don't even know about yet.
And Ryan, I'll tell you that this is my call coming to technology. I think the company that does it very well will be the big company, and that's the one who makes haptic products. haptic being the response
Mm-hmm.
of the actual system. So when you get shot, you feel the shot
Yep.
in your body, right? You feel it. Oh, you know, you're throwing a fishing line out in your game. You feel the fish on the line, right? You hit the baseball. You feel it's in the haptic. I think haptic is the answer to everything.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that'll pair greatly with VR and AR, virtual reality and augmented reality, which we already see is starting to proliferate as well. So, and along those lines, a lot of people use their phones for those devices. I mean, I remember way back to the days of Nintendo when Virtual Boy came out. And it was this awkward goggle thing that you had to put on a tripod and put your head into. And now what we have is you just take your phone that you're already carrying, snap that into a pair of goggles, and boom, you've got VR and AR right there. You add haptic to that, like you just said, Stephen. Oh boy, I mean, you're going to be completely immersed in that experience.
What about you, Andrew? What do you think the next level is?
I mean, I totally agree exactly what you guys were just saying. I mean, think about it, like what, only like 13 years ago or so, like the Apple like iPhone came out. I mean, let's think like project like 10, 13 years from now. Why can't we have like a situation where it's kind of like the Matrix or something where we put like a headset on and we're actually in the game and the game actually feels completely real. It's just interactive entertainment. It's kind of like taking a movie to like the entire like next level where you're in the movie, but like you yourself are the main character who kind of like control the entire script. So I mean, I have no idea if or when that's going to happen. I mean, it might be like Back to the Future saying we're going to fly in cars in 2015, like that 1985 movie said. But I think that eventually is kind of where we're headed because that's.
And if you add the social aspect to that too, like I said, the haptic or the AR, and the three of us are playing a game and we beat an alien, we all give each other high fives, we all feel the high fives, right? We all see each other, we see our avatars. I think this thing is really just, like you said, we also said at the beginning, this is literally just in infancy, the first two innings.
I totally agree. You know, it might be worth remembering, don't take the red pill if you're presented with that choice. So guys, this has been great. I suspect that we are going to be hitting this subject several more times in the near future as things take off. So I really want to thank both of you for joining us today. I look forward to having this discussion again. And until next time, Zingers, happy trading.